The morning the critic walked in, I was elbow deep in almond flour and my sister was standing outside the glass door of my bakery, laughing, not at something funny at me. She had her phone raised, and she was filming. I could see her mouth moving, saying something to whoever was on the other end of the call, the way her shoulders shook, the way she pointed at the hand-lettered sign above my door, Marin's, like the name itself was the punchline I kept needing. The dough needed 2 more minutes. Dough does not care about cruelty. Dough only cares about time and pressure. And I have always respected that about it. It was a Thursday in October, 7 in the morning, and the bakery had been open for 11 months. I had 4 tables, a second-hand convection oven I'd named Margaret after my grandmother, and a chalkboard menu I rewrote every Sunday night. My best seller was a cardamom and brown butter loaf that a food blogger in Portland had written one sentence about in August, and that sentence had brought in enough foot traffic to keep the lights on through September. My sister Claire did not know about the blogger. She did not know about the critic, who was at that moment parking a gray Subaru 2 doors down from my bakery on Northwest 23rd Avenue. She did not know that I had spent the last 14 months preparing for exactly this moment, not the critic's arrival, which I could not have predicted, but the moment when everything she had said about me would be answered not by my words, but by evidence. She kept filming. I kept needing. I am 34 years old. I was a licensed CPA for 8 years at a mid-size accounting firm in Portland, Oregon. I wore sensible shoes and brought my lunch in a canvas bag and was considered, by most people who worked with me, reliable and thorough, and not particularly interesting. That was fine. I was not trying to be interesting. I was trying to pay off $62,000 in student loan debt, which I finished in 2019, and save enough to do the one thing I had been calculating since I was 11 years old: open a bakery, my grandmother's bakery to be precise. Her name was Margaret Osei. She came from Accra, Ghana in 1971, and she opened a small shop in Northeast Portland in 1984 that she ran until the year she died. The shop is gone now. A dispensary operates in that space, but I have her cast iron skillet, a 12-inch lodge that she brought from Ghana, inside a suitcase wrapped in a headscarf, and I have her recipe notebooks, 6 of them, filled with her handwriting in pencil and her notes in the margins in a mix of English and TYI that I have been slowly, imperfectly, learning to read. I left the accounting firm in April of 2022. My manager said it was a risk. My financial advisor said it was calculated. I had $94,000 saved, a signed lease on a 680 square foot space on NW 23rd, and a business plan I had revised 9 times. What I did not have was my family's support. My mother said, quietly, that she hoped I knew what I was doing. My uncle said nothing, which in our family means disapproval. My sister Claire said, at Easter dinner with our entire extended family present, that it was so brave to try something like this when you have no actual training. She said it warmly. She always said things warmly. I declined a job offer from a larger firm in Seattle 3 weeks before I signed my bakery lease. The offer was $118,000 base salary, full benefits, partnership track in 5 years. I kept the offer letter. I folded it and put it in the back of Grandma Margaret's first recipe notebook, between a recipe for chin chin and a note in her handwriting that said, simply, be patient. It takes what it takes. I understood what I was walking away from. I walked away anyway. Claire is 3 years older than me. She is a project manager at a tech company, and she is, genuinely, very good at her job. She is also the kind of person who makes everyone in a room feel slightly less certain of themselves, not through obvious cruelty, but through a steady, quiet accumulation of small corrections. When we were children, she was the one who explained things to me. What to wear, how to talk to boys, why my interests were a little odd. She delivered these instructions like gifts, and I received them the way a younger sister receives most things from an older one, as the natural order of things. There was a period, in our late 20s, When we were genuinely close, she was going through a difficult divorce and I was the person she called, sometimes at 2 in the morning. To talk, I drove to her apartment with food. I sat with her through the paperwork. I helped her understand her own financial disclosures, line by line, because she was scared and I was good with numbers. Those years were real, I do not revise them. But something shifted when I started talking seriously about leaving accounting. I noticed at first as a change in temperature, a slight cooling in conversations about my plans, a pause before she responded to things I was excited about. Then the comments began. Small ones, always framed as concern. I just worry you're romanticizing it. Have you talked to anyone who actually runs a food business about how hard it is? I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, realistically, each comment arrived alone, and each one alone was deniable. Reasonable, even a person could say she was being a responsible older sister. A person could say I was being sensitive. But I am a CPA, I understand patterns, I understand what a set of data points means when you lay them side by side. When I signed the lease, she texted me a single line, "Well, you've done it now." When I opened, she did not come. She told our mother she was busy. She told our aunt she wasn't sure parking was available on that block. She told me when I asked directly that she had meant to come but the timing hadn't worked out. 3 months later, I overheard her at a family dinner telling our cousin that she gave it maybe another 6 months. She did not know I was standing in the hallway. She said it without hesitation, the way you say a thing you have already decided is true. The discovery did not come from anything dramatic. It came from a phone call I was not supposed to receive. In February, a woman named Denise called the bakery landline looking for Claire. She apologized, said she had gotten the number from a mutual contact, and asked if I was Marin the baker because she had heard about the cardamom loaf and wanted to place a wholesale order for her calf. I said yes, and we talked for a few minutes about quantities and delivery. Then she said, almost as an aside, that she had been confused because she had heard from a few people in the food community that the bakery was struggling, that there were hygiene issues, that the owner had no real culinary background, and it showed. I kept my hands flat on the counter so they would stay still. I asked her carefully where she had heard that. She paused. Then she said that someone had sent an email to the Northwest Portland Food Forum's membership list, a private email list of about 340 small restaurant and cafe owners, saying as much. She had assumed it was a competitor. She thought I should know. I thanked her. I took her order. I put the phone down. Then I sat down on the stool behind the counter and I looked at the cast iron skillet hanging on the wall above Margaret, and I breathed slowly and steadily until my hands felt like my own again. The forum's administrator was a man named Gerald Park, who came in every Friday for a multigrain loaf. I asked him quietly and without explanation whether he still had the email on record. He did. He forwarded it to me that same afternoon. The email had been sent from a Gmail account with a random string of letters, but the writing was Claire's. I have read her emails for 20 years. I know how she builds sentences. I know her particular way of using the word frankly. I know how she qualifies criticisms with phrases like "I hate to say this, but..." More importantly, 3 weeks earlier, I had been updating the shared family Google Drive, a folder we'd used since our mother's surgery in 2021, and I had seen a draft document titled Notes that contained, almost word for word, the language in the forum email. I had not thought anything of it at the time. I thought something of it now. I made a copy of the draft. I saved the forwarded email. I dated both documents and put them in a folder I labeled admin correspondence and stored on my personal hard drive. I placed a wholesale order from Denise for 16 loaves per week. Then I went back to the kitchen and finished the afternoon's bread. I did not call Claire. I did not confront anyone. I made an appointment with a defamation attorney named Priya Mehta, whose office was on S.W. Morrison Street, and I brought the folder. She read the documents carefully. Then she looked up and said that what I had was potentially actionable, particularly given the demonstrable business context, a private professional listserv, false statements of fact, a pattern of behavior, but that documentation would be everything. I asked her what documentation she needed. She told me I spent the next 6 weeks building a file. I pulled my revenue records for the 11 months since opening. I had a spreadsheet that tracked daily sales, foot traffic, and wholesale orders. I cross-referenced it with the date the forum email was sent, and documented the 3-week dip in new wholesale inquiries that followed. I asked 2 cafe owners who had mentioned hearing things to put what they'd heard in writing. Both agreed. I also hired a forensic document specialist for a 3-hour consultation, $375, who confirmed that the writing style analysis I had done on my own was defensible as supporting evidence, though not conclusive. I want to say this to anyone watching who has ever had someone use your professional reputation as a target. Document everything from the beginning. Before you know, you need a revenue logs, emails, the dates of conversations, the names of witnesses. A pattern cannot be proven without data, and data requires the habit of recording. I built that habit early because I am at my core still an accountant. I filed the folder. I continued baking. October settled over Portland the way it does, damp and amber and unhurried. I woke at 4:30 every morning and walked the 6 blocks to the bakery in the dark. I liked those walks. The city was quiet. My footsteps were loud on the wet pavement. I had a routine. I started Margaret at 4:45, mixed the first doughs by 5:15, and had the first loaves in by 5:45 for a 7 o'clock open. On the morning the Critic came, I had made a new batch of the cardamom loaf to dozen small tea cakes with rosewater glaze and a limited run of a coconut and black sesame bread. I had adapted from one of Grandma Margaret's notebook recipes, the one that had a small drawing of a palm tree in the margin. I had not told anyone about the coconut bread. It felt private, still forming. Claire had sent me a text 2 days earlier asking if I wanted to have lunch. I had read it and set my phone face down and thought about it while I shaped dough and decided there was nothing to decide yet. I would answer after. I was not angry. Anger is expensive, and I have learned to spend my energy carefully. The morning was ordinary. Gerald Park came in for his multigrain. A woman with a stroller ordered the last rosewater tea cake and looked genuinely pleased. The bakery was 3/4 full when the door opened at 9:40, and a man in a gray raincoat came in and stood near the chalkboard for a long moment, reading everything on it twice. I recognized him from his byline photo. He wrote the table and counter column for the Oregon Herald. He had reviewed 22 restaurants in Portland in the last 3 years. He had never reviewed a bakery. He ordered the cardamom loaf and the coconut bread. He sat at the table by the window. He ate slowly and wrote in a notebook. He did not look up for 35 minutes. I called Claire the following Friday, which was also the day Priya Mehta sent the formal letter. Claire arrived at my bakery at 6 in the evening. After close, I had asked my landlord's property manager, James Yoon, to be present as a third party, which I told Claire before she came. She seemed puzzled by that but agreed. She came and looked around with the expression she always had in the bakery, a careful neutrality, like she was deciding how to feel about it, and sat down at the center table. James sat near the door with a coffee. He did not speak for the duration of what followed. I sat across from Claire and I put the folder on the table. I did not raise my voice. I did not begin with an accusation. I started with the phone call from Denise, explained what she'd told me, and then I placed the forwarded email on the table and slid it toward Claire. She looked at it. She said she didn't know what that was. I put the draft document from the family Google Drive beside the email. I had highlighted the matching phrases in yellow. There were 11 of them. She said that a lot of people write similarly and it didn't mean anything. I placed the revenue analysis for pages, printed with the 3-week dip circled in the week following the email send date beside the other documents. She said the dip could have been weather, the news cycle, any number of things. I placed the written statements from the cafe owners on the table. The refrigerator in the back hummed. A clock on the wall moved through 10 seconds. Claire's hand, which had been moving toward the documents, went still. She looked at the table. Then she looked at me. Something moved through her expression, not guilt, exactly, more like recognition. The recognition a person has when they realize they have miscalculated. She said that she had only been concerned about me, that she had just wanted me to be realistic, that I had always been the kind of person who rushed into things without thinking them through, and she had only ever tried to protect me from my own. I stopped her there. I said, "You told me it was so brave to try something like this when I had no actual training." She said yes, she remembered saying that. I said, "The email says," and I'm quoting, "frankly, the owner has no actual culinary training and it shows in every aspect of the operation." The clock moved. The refrigerator hummed. Claire was quiet for a long time, then she picked up her coat and her bag and she left without speaking. James sat by the door with his coffee cup half raised. He lowered it slowly. He did not say anything. He looked at the folder and then at the door and then at me, and gave one small nod, the kind that means I saw it, I was here, it happened. And then he quietly let himself out. I sat in the empty bakery. I did not feel triumphant. I felt the way you feel when a long calculation finally balances, not surprised. Just finished. The letter from Priya's office resulted in a settlement conference in January. Claire did not admit to sending the email, but she agreed to pay $14,200, which Priya's analysis had calculated as a conservative estimate of the documented revenue loss from the 3-week dip in wholesale inquiries and 2 CAF accounts that had not renewed. She paid into installments. I have the bank confirmations. The Oregon Herald Review ran on November 14th. The Critic, his name is David Sue, described the cardamom loaf as having a quality of quiet authority. He devoted one full paragraph to the coconut and black sesame bread. He called it a serious piece of work. The piece ran online and in print, and the following week, I had a wait list for wholesale accounts and needed to hire my first part-time employee. My mother called me the day the review ran. She was crying a little quietly and said she was proud of me. I told her I knew she had always been proud of me in her own way, which was true. My aunt sent flowers. My uncle called, which in our family means approval. Claire and I have not spoken since the settlement. I do not know whether we will. I do not have a feeling about it either way that I trust, yet some accounts take longer to reconcile than others, and forcing the math too early gets you the wrong number. The morning after the settlement finalized, I came into the bakery early and took Grandma Margaret's cast iron skillet down from the wall. I had been keeping it there since I opened, displayed like a certificate. I brought it into the kitchen and I seasoned it properly. Flaxseed oil 2 hours in the oven at 375, and I used it for the first time to toast the seeds for the coconut bread. It held the heat the way good cast iron does, evenly, without complaint, without any drama at all. That felt right. I think about what my grandmother wrote in the notebook, sometimes be patient, it takes what it takes. She built something real in a city that was not always kind to her. She used what she had. She kept records in pencil and fed people bread and did not require anyone's permission to be serious about her work. I am her granddaughter. I am a CPA and a baker. I am 34 years old and I own a small business on NW 23rd Avenue in Portland, Oregon, and I have learned that the most important thing you can do when someone decides to be careless with your life is to be yourself. Extremely careful. Not cruel, not loud, just careful. The cardamom loaf is still my bestseller. The coconut bread sells out by 8:30 most mornings. I rewrote the chalkboard menu again last Sunday and added one of Grandma Margaret's chin chin recipes, adapted for the oven. Small and honeyed and good. If this story felt true to something in your own life, I would be glad to know you're out there. Leave a comment or share this with someone who might need to hear that careful and patient are not the same as weak. And if you want to stay for the next one, there is always another story and I will always tell it the same way, quietly with documentation.